In life and in business, you are either going to contribute or consume. Being a contributor or a consumer, each of those has its own unique benefits, rewards, and it reminds me of a journey I've taken with almost all 8 of our children, and that's the journey into driving. It almost never fails. Like every single time I've ever taught someone to drive, the kid will get into the car, they'll put the car in gear, and then we'll talk about, oh, here's where we're going. Well, where are we going? We're going to Walmart, or we're going to church, or we're going wherever. We're going to a place that we've been to 1,000 times. And the kid doesn't know. And I look over, son, how do you not know the directions to get to this place? It surprised me the first time or two that happened. But the more it happened with all of the kids, I realized the reason they didn't know where we were going is because they were enjoying the benefits of a passenger. A passenger gets into a car and shows up without any thought as to where the car is going and without really any responsibility of getting it there. When the passenger turns into a driver, there's a whole different set of skills, expectations, and rewards that now become available. But the two people are different people. The passenger is not the driver. And the driver had to learn, where do I want to go? How do I get there? Can I remember how to get there? And obviously, it doesn't take too long for someone to find their way to Walmart, especially with GPS these days and all of the things on smartphones. But I think you get the idea. I run a group coaching that has lots of people in it. And the vast majority of people who show up into the coaching program, the group coaching program, not one-on-one, the vast majority of people show up with the energy of a passenger, or as what I'm going to say is a consumer. And it can be real tempting to be a consumer because it feels like something is just packaged and done for you. So just like a passenger, they get into the car and they get to a place and it's packaged, it's done. I don't have to think about it. It's easy, it's simple. And certainly a lot of us have parts of our lives that's just what we are. We're that. We're a consumer. The world needs consumers. If we don't have consumers, we don't produce products. But what if I told you the more powerful place to be is the place of the contributor, the place of the creator? That if you take a role, an active role, a participatory role, a role in creation, then you actually bring something about that never existed. How can I do that, Donnie? Well, I'm glad you asked me how you can go from being a consumer to being a contributor. It's actually really easy. But first, before I tell you that, let's talk about the reasons why you might not be creating and contributing right now. I think some of us are waiting for permission. We think that someone else has to give us the right to create, to contribute, to bring something new forth. And so what we do is we say, well, who am I? And I wasn't called upon. And so we sit back and we wait. And nothing really comes about other than what the other person brings. It's basically like, okay, well, whatever you say is the right answer. I'm not really offering anything positive or negative to it. It just is. The other reason I think that we're doing is we just haven't thought about it. We don't think of ourselves as sometimes active agents in our life. Just like the kid riding in a car, never really thought about the fact that they're responsible and they could own a part of what happened. That's how we approach life and business. And so we consume. Let me give you an example. You show up to church. Someone's up there preaching. Well, how can you become a contributor? Are you going to stand up and preach? Or at a business meeting, are you going to stand up and interrupt the boss? Certainly not. But how do you how do you interact with what's coming forth? Do you just let it flow over you as though you are, again, passive? Or as the words are coming at you, are you engaging with them? Are you looking at them in a new way? Are you giving thought? Are you asking questions? So even when you're not the driver, you can be a creator. You can be a contributor. Guess what happens when you do? You add volume. You add something new that didn't exist. You add a new layer of paint to something that someone else already painted. You create a new creation and you become a co-creator. So you can do this when you read a book. You're not just reading a book and says, whatever this guy says is true. I will do what he says. No, you're supposed to read it and think about what you think. You're supposed to be reading it and thinking about what it's making you think. Become an active participator in the reading and the listening. Don't just be like a child that just says yes and accepts everything that's coming your way. When you are in almost everything that you're doing, you can decide whether or not you're going to show up and bring thought and curiosity into that. And I think that's the biggest way that we can actually step into anything as a contributor, as a creator, as someone that's at least in part responsible for getting to the destination. And I want you to see yourself as that. You are a co-creator. You are creative. You are not to be just mitigated and put into a corner someplace. No, you're a part of the solution for your company, for your family, for all of these things. So stop waiting for people to ask you to participate. Show up, stand up, and remember, whether it's the energy you bring, the questions you ask, the way that you interact, there is a way for you to be a contributor, to be a creator. And I've got to tell you, every single time, I love it, every single time someone brings forth a question in my world, they're stepping out of the safety zone and they're stepping into the learning zone. You cannot begin a quest without a question. You cannot grow and improve until you are willing to show up and say, I don't know. And that's the vulnerability of being that contributor, creator. We may not get it right all the time, but you can contribute. Every single time anyone ever has done that with truth and with humility, it always doesn't, like, they're not the only ones that get to grow and learn from that. I get to grow and learn from that. Now that's the lifestyle that I put myself in. And every time, like with my group coaching and my one-on-one coaching, it's such a beautiful thing that I'm not just showing up as like this leader and guide, even though I am. I'm also simultaneously a learner. And so I would just ask you to engage with, as you're looking at different areas, ask yourself, am I a contributor or am I just being a consumer? And try to find more ways where you can contribute, where you can create, where you can add thought to what's happening, because from that's how we make new and wonderful things. So hope this one helps. Message me, let me know what your co-creation is going to be, how you can be a contributor.